When someone dies, a crow carries their soul to the land of the dead. But sometimes something so bad happens that the soul cannot rest.
How many people have you loved?
I'll never be alone.
So we went to go check out a movie, and it's cool that we ended up seeing this movie. Now, the movie we're talking about tonight is a new Crow remake that came out. So I'm assuming you're familiar with the original Crow movie.
Yeah, with Brandon Lee.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that was a great movie.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And throughout the years, there's been several remakes or that they tried and attempted to do and never quite had that magic. Now, there's some people out there that says the reason why the first Crow was so good was because Brandon died and that kind of put a thing on it. For me personally, I thought it was just a brilliant movie. It was well acted. The characters were really cool and stuff. And regardless if he would have passed, now I'm not going to say that him passing didn't put a little extra something on it, because it did. I remember just being choked up when they said for Brandon and Eliza, his fiance, at the end. I'm thinking like, man, this is crazy. I can't believe this dude is gone, you know?
Yeah.
I watched some of his older movies like Rapid Fire, Showdown in Little Tokyo.
Showdown in Little Tokyo I didn't see, but Rapid Fire, that's when I first heard of Brandon Lee. Then, of course, The Crow.
Okay. Yeah, the one with Showdown in Little Tokyo, that was one with Dolph Lundgren. And then he did this one called Laser Mission, and that was kind of low budget or whatever. Kind of riding off the fame of his dad being a martial artist and stuff. But I think The Crow was the first movie that he did that would, actually set him apart, where he wasn't trying to be this kung fu master or anything. He was just that character. He kind of really dedicated to playing that role without, trying to lean towards the, because in like Rapid Fire stuff or Showdown in Little Tokyo, he'll be doing little fighting stances and he would kind of flip his nose like his dad would do, little cues and stuff that,
Right.
Fans would look for and know and paying homage to his dad and stuff. But The Crow, he played Eric Draven. That's who he was in the film. And he didn't do any special kicks or anything like that. It was just like he was that character. For that to be his last performance, it was very powerful. And then also, I'm sure it let a lot of people know what he was capable of. Like, he just wasn't a one-trick pony. Like, he could do some serious acting and have this different range and stuff that wasn't really shown in the other movies he did.
He did. He had big range in that one. Now, was The Crow based on a graphic novel or a comic book?
Yes, it was. James O'Barr.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, because I never knew that, right?
Oh.
And then, growing up Chinese, right? Bruce Lee was my hero growing up, and then when he passed away, I was a young boy, right? So, but he was still my hero. I really looked up to him, and then when Brandon Lee hit the scene, that's when I saw him in Rapid Fire. I was like, oh my God, yes, finally. Yeah. Finally, I have a Chinese American that I could look forward to on the big screen, right?
Yeah.
And so, watching him in Rapid Fire and him doing all his moves, and then watching him do The Crow, and then realizing that was his last movie, that was a bummer.
Yeah.
I had no interest in seeing any of the mashups afterwards, any of that. I just saw The Crow, and that was it for me.
Yeah.
To me, that's Brandon Lee will always be The Crow to me.
Yeah, to me too. But I was hoping that there's, lightning was going to strike twice. I was hoping that they would be able to figure it out, because when somebody kind of imprints on a movie like that, it's hard. Like, that's why they have a problem with the Blade movie right now. That character is so Wesley Snipes. Mahershala, he's dope, right? He's a Bay Area dude too, so much respect. And I could see him as being Blade, but like I said, what can he offer that's not going to be what Wesley already did? That's going to be the hard part.
It's going to be hard.
Different. Right.
How would you take this character and make it your own without looking like a copycat?
Exactly. So I felt the same way with The Crow. Like, okay, now, you're going to have to switch it up a little bit, do something a little bit different, because you're going to have big shoes to fill. And the best way sometimes to do it is to kind of go left, because anything else is going to be compared. So I knew it was going to be a challenge, but I kind of had my fingers crossed on this new movie. And, you know what? We might as well just get into it and just do our non-spoiler thoughts of the movie.
Okay.
So the Crow, soulmates Eric and Shelley are brutally murdered. Given a chance to save the love of his life, Eric must sacrifice himself and traverse through the worlds of the living and the dead, seeking revenge. And this is directed by Rupert Sanders. So he did Snow White and the Huntsman, and he got into this big old thing because he ended up having an affair with the lead of the movie he was doing, and so there was a whole mess with that.
Oh, that's she was in the Twilight?
Yes. So he's mostly known for that than he is even his own work. And he did that Ghost in the Shell movie with Scarlett Johansson.
Wow. Oh, okay. Oh, shoot. Now you're going way back.
And people kind of give that a bad rep, but was it great? No, it wasn't great. But was it as bad as people said it was? I felt it was okay.
I felt it was okay. Now, I would have to watch it again because I only saw it once.
Okay.
If I really like a movie, I'll see it multiple times.
Yeah.
You know? What was you thinking about this Crow version? What was you thinking about this one?
For this one, first of all, I knew it had strikes against it already because, like I said, it's been tried a few times and never quite worked out. But like I said, for some reason, that trailer kind of got me because at first I was thinking like, man, look at that dude's haircut. Like, I hate that guy's haircut. It looks crazy. He got like this mullet kind of weird thing going on.
It was a mullet. They're trying to bring the mullet back.
Right,
It was a bowl cut / mullet.
Yeah, and so I'm like, okay, you're trying to do the mullet thing, and then you have all the tats and stuff, and it's like, we just went through all this tattoo stuff with that new Joker, and that didn't work with the Joker for me, and I didn't like it. But then in a way, I understood that they need to set it apart from the original one. So I understood that. So some of that stuff I had to forgive because it's like, I always complain like you're going to try to copy it and it's not going to be the same. So do something left. So they did something left. So that kind of stuff that I initially saw that bothered me, I used it as a positive because at least they're doing something different. Not that I liked all the choices that were different, but it was something different.
It's interesting that you kind of focus on the tattoos because I noticed all those tattoos as well. And I was thinking to myself, sitting, next to you watching this movie, and I was thinking, are those tattoos real or are they just made for the movie? Right?
Yeah.
Are those movie tattoos or are those his tattoos? I just couldn't wrap my mind around it. Right? I noticed that. I liked the production of it. It was slick.
Yeah.
Very dark at times. It was pretty dark.
Yeah. So overall, what'd you feel about it?
Okay, so if I was to rate it old school, 1 to 5 stars, I'd probably give it about 2.5 to a 3. Be honest with you.
Okay, that's fair.
2.5 to a 3. How about you? Would you agree with that assessment? Did you like it a little bit better?
I usually don't give numbers or anything, but I will say, put it like this: I wouldn't feel comfortable suggesting it to somebody because I would know that they probably would have issues with it. So I think if you like the Crow lore and that kind of stuff, and you're curious, this would be cool to check out. But if it didn't have that kind of going for it, it would be hard for me to like. I thought it was entertaining because it was different. I was just curious. I honestly, when I watched it, the whole time was kind of wondering what was going to happen next. So that means they changed it up enough for where I just didn't have the book on it, and I'm like, okay, this, then this, then this. I was honestly trying to figure out what was going to happen. Now, was it a little rough in certain parts for me to get through it? Yes, it was. But it had my attention to at least try to see it through, see what was going to happen with it. But it is also to me, it's like a matinee movie too.
It was a matinee movie. So I enjoyed the revenge part of it. Okay.
Yeah.
I liked that part. I liked how they tried to distinguish the two franchises. How, well, this guy, he doesn't know any kind of martial arts, right?
Right.
Although if you notice, his fighting got better toward the movie as the movie progressed. You did notice that, right?
I did.
Okay. I don't want to go through spoilers, but both you and I we're laughing out loud. We can hear each other, and I had said something about how he was getting down, right?
Yeah.
It was a very interesting concept, and I enjoyed that aspect of part of it, right?
Yeah,
that whole thing. It was just I think the dialogue is kind of weak. I think the plot was pretty strong, I think. And the acting and stuff, I think it's meh. That's why I gave it kind of a low ball rating, an average rating, so to speak.
I think that's fair. Fair. And I'd say about the same. It'd be hard for me to recommend it.
I wouldn't pay money to go see it again.
Right. So if it's like, a curiosity thing, you like the Crow franchise, you want to see something different just out of curiosity, I would say go check it out. But I wouldn't necessarily just recommend it as necessarily a good movie, but it did have some cool parts that was in it. I'll say that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go dig into the spoiler part, the spoiler section. You can start. Is there anything that really stood out to you that you?
So what I really liked about it was I liked the healing factor, right? I liked how he was an unstoppable killing machine, like how Brandon Lee was, right?
Yeah.
I like the fact that he could get hurt and he did feel pain, and how his nemesis, every single nemesis that he faced, they thought they put him down and he would pop back up. He had that, remember what I said? He had that ultimate healing factor, like, like Deadpool. He just popped up, right? I just thought that was great.
Yeah.
I like that part. What about you, Jay?
I agree, man. I thought it was pretty cool. And to see that kind of stuff, because even with the original movie with Brandon Lee, he had the healing factor, but the technology is so much better now. And he did have this kind of Undertaker vibe where he just pops back up, like you said. So it made him more like a monster, because in the original movie, Eric, he seemed like a nicer guy. He was kind of like, if you're not in my way, then you could live. But this version of Eric, he was just running through people.
Yeah, for sure.
It was just like, you in the room, you're going to die. It wasn't even a thing for him. Cool. But I thought it was interesting too. Well, I'll put it like this. As long as that movie was, I thought it was a missed opportunity to give us more insight, because it seemed like we got a lot of insight kind of more so on his lady, but not so much on him. And so even though we started off with him, okay, his mom was a drug addict. His horse died, right?
His horse died, right?
Okay, what else? What else? Okay, he was 7 years old then. He's damn near 25 now. Who is he now? What does he do?
Well, yeah, how did he come into this place?
Right. Like, how did he get there? And he's the main character. So to get his lady's story on how she got there, it's like, okay, so she's not the main character. So I'm hearing about his lady Shelly and the stuff that she's going through, and not to be messed up, but how most guys get into bad situations is chasing after the wrong girl.
Oh, right, for sure.
So it's just like one of those kind of things. So it's just like, okay, so that's interesting. We kind of know how that goes. What did he do on his end? How did he go wrong? Because he seemed like he had some cool friends that we kind of met later on along the way. But it's like, was he hanging out and he had a drug overdose and he needed to get help finally? What happened? Did his mom pass away? And he's like, hey, I want to do better for myself because my mom passed. Like, what? How did he get there? And
no, you're absolutely right.
We had plenty of time to find out too, but we didn't hear nothing about it.
Nothing. No, it was kind of, yeah. That's a very good way of saying the plot was very clumsy at times, right? You were just tripping along. It's like, okay, we're gonna focus on his girlfriend,
right?
Okay, now she has some sort of dark life. Okay, now let's go back to him as a kid. I mean, it was very choppy. Now he's being picked on inside. Was he in a drug rehab or was he in prison?
It looked like both. It looked like a 50-50.
It's like they couldn't make up their mind. I mean, did anyone bother researching what a drug rehab center looks like?
And if it's a drug rehab center that he's trying to keep him in there, don't just have one barbed wire fence to hold it.
Right. It just looked. It was just weird.
Yeah. So I'm just like, when it looked like this maximum security place and they showed it all set off to itself, I'm like, this is like something out of Suicide Squad. It looked like some high, people be on the Arkham. Towers. Right. Exactly.
Like, maximum security facility for the criminally insane. What's going on?
Right. But then act like, okay, it wasn't clear. But then also, even though we saw how Shelly got there, that was also a missed opportunity to give us more insight on the bad guys. Like, I need to know who these guys he's trying to take out. He's getting revenge, right? I don't know their motives or what's going on. And when we did find out about some bad guys, it was almost kind of like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, it wasn't enough information for me to feel fine with it. It's like, so you're getting back this guy that was there, one of the goons. He was just like a goon number 2. It wasn't like I knew he was like, fun boy. Or that was, no personalities or nothing. So it wasn't even like, it was no skank. None of the guys, no T-Bird. It was none of the characters. And as long as that movie was, I should have known some nicknames, me feeling a certain kind of way about him, like, oh, that guy, he kicked the dog, and that guy right there, he stole
I don't know any of those characters.
Nothing. So they were just slaughtered for him just to take out, and I couldn't even feel bad because I didn't remember who was guilty and who wasn't. I didn't know who it was. It was just like they was on the screen. They were going to die.
For sure. That's what makes a movie memorable, right? If you start remembering, like Ernie Hudson.
Yes.
He was the cop. I remember him, right? That was these guys. I have no idea. Biling was in the other one, right?
Yeah.
These guys right here. I'm like, well, who are they?
Right.
Why are they here? How long have they been here?
Right.
Okay, if this guy is sending innocent souls to hell,
right?
Then why would the devil allow the crow to stop his work? So if the crow is supposed to be a force of vengeance, a force of good, so to speak, because that's what they said in the movie, to right what is wrong, right? You have your opportunity to right what is wrong, okay? Then why all the dark imagery that was surrounding it?
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? It's like almost demonic imagery, right?
Right.
That was the one thing that I was having a hard time reconciling, right? It's like, okay, well, if you're supposed to be a force of good, then it shouldn't be as dark. It shouldn't be as demonic, so to speak.
Right. And the lore was very mucky. I didn't really understand how it worked, because before, just like, okay, it's revenge. Okay, then it turned into having, undying true love, and then it was kind of like you gotta believe in that love. And so he saw a video where Shelley did something wrong, so now he don't believe in their love anymore. And so now he don't have his powers anymore, and he keeps dying and coming back and pushing back in and coming back out. I'm like, wait a minute. And then at the last minute, he gives him the power of the crow and juices him up and then sends him back. And I'm thinking, like, why didn't you send him back juiced up in the first place? Why are you sending him back regular so he could die again so you could push him back in? And it's just like...
Right. Make up your mind.
Like how many times? So the first time, let me get this straight. So the first time when he sends you back and you kill all the people. Now you're regular. We're sending you back. You're going to kill all the people. You and Shelley get to live again and you're fine. Okay.
Right.
He goes up there, fails. And he tells him the second time, if you go back again, that you could live, but Shelley will be lost forever.
Right.
But no. I'm going to sacrifice myself so Shelley could live. Okay. If you do that, Shelley will live, but you'll never see her again. And then he soups him up with this extra power, and he's all, and he goes back and he takes everybody out. But I'm thinking, like, it was so convoluted. Like, I didn't understand what the process was. I didn't understand the
Very
rules.
Convoluted. I think if the writers would have borrowed, so to speak, aspects of the Ghost Rider. So the Ghost Rider is the spirit of vengeance. Okay. Right. So if they kind of wrote that in as those who come back as the crow is the spirit of vengeance, then that would make a little bit better sense, right? It would move the story along a little bit further, right?
Right.
And it really isn't necessary about always have to give them a villain where he's also juiced up. I don't think that's really necessary either.
Right. It almost threw me off that the first supernatural thing we saw in that movie was the bad guy. Was Danny Houston's character. I think his name is Vincent Rogue, I think.
Yeah, he played a vampire in that, was that 40 nights?
40 Days and Nights. Yeah.
40 Days and Nights. He was a vampire in that one.
Yes, he
was. That was a good one.
Yes, he was with Josh Hartnett.
Yeah.
So to see him, I'm thinking, like, is he a vampire? What is he? I didn't understand what he even was, but it was weird to see that movie starting off and the first supernatural thing you see is him and not the crow. And so it made me think of like the first one. I like the fact that Top Dollar wasn't... Now, they played around with that kind of stuff, right? But he wasn't of it. And so he's almost admiring the fact that Eric had those powers and he didn't, right? And then he had his sister that was kind of more into that kind of stuff. And they were just some odd folks that kind of played around with it. But they have this guy as actually some kind of monster demon hybrid thing to jump. I'm like, okay, why? Like why? It's almost not special. Okay, so we got all these people walking around that could do this kind of stuff. Then what's the point of the crow?
Right. What's the point of the crow?
And like I said, I didn't understand exactly what he was doing. And then why was these Juilliard kids that played the classical piano the only ones that he wanted? Like, I didn't understand. Like, why wouldn't he just take And he talk about pure souls, and it's like, well, just because you're in band don't mean you're pure souls.
Those kids that he had chose to take their souls to hell anyway,
right?
Let's just face it, they weren't pure. They're pretty motherfucking corrupt.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why they understand why that need to pull your fishing in. I didn't get it, so it kind of contradicted
down there.
Right, so it contradicted the rules that was even in place. So I didn't really understand why them. And then, like I said, it was just like, if you're gonna bring up something like that, you're gonna have to explain it and make it make some sense, because you made it complicated. You made it kind of hard to figure out what was going on. Like, for us to be watching that movie that long and for a lot of nothing to be happening at times, there's no reason why we couldn't been getting information. Like, I didn't realize that was even her mom. When they first showed Shelly's mom, I thought it was somebody that was going into the prison. I thought that was just somebody they brought in there to pretend that was her mom to get her out so they could get her, right?
Okay, so not see, that's how unforgettable a character. She looked like a lawyer. She just looked like a flunky, right?
Exactly. Right. And then we learned towards the end that was her mom. And then it was like, so who was her mom? And just because you got pictures of yourself on the wall don't mean that you're rich and famous and somebody important. I don't know who you are, lady. I don't know who you are.
And then, what kind of terrible childhood do you have where you rebel against your mom, where you're living in like friggin' the dumps of some metropolis, living all gritty and stuff, when you can be living in the lap of luxury? That makes no type of sense. Whatever.
Right. And then you have these little weird cut scenes where, they're in there making a beat, making a song together, and then it goes to nothing. And they got this one scene where they're going into the elevator and it seems like something's going to happen. Then it goes to another scene. I'm like, what is all this? Where's this going? Why? What?
Where's this going? Why? What's the purpose of this?
Like, what? Especially with so much stuff I don't know. I want to know. I want to see something different, but you're not giving it to me. And so you're just filling it up with a whole bunch of other stuff, and you're killing us something that could have had a good start, but it just really was just disjointed. And I can't tell if the reason why it's choppy because they cut some stuff out or whatever. But in my head, I think there's probably a better edit of that out, but I mean, that they could do. But the edit we got was just clunky.
We're going to have to wait for the director's cut, basically.
or something, unless the director did this. I don't know. It was too much stuff that was started and not finished, and stuff that was key things that we didn't have enough insight. And like I said, the reason why the first movie was the way it was, as far as not getting a lot of background for Shelley and Eric and all that kind of stuff, is because Brandon died. And so they kind of re-edited the whole movie. So stuff that would have been, long scenes and more insight and stuff was chopped up into flashbacks. So that's how we saw things going. So that was because the guy was gone, and that's the new direction to make the movie work. But
you're right. No,
but in the beginning, they would have gave more information. Yeah, we would have got to know them before she was taken away from him and all that kind of stuff.
That's a good point I want to touch on real quick. I think it's how everything is geared nowadays. I think you're exactly right. I think they said, "Oh shit, this movie is 2.5 hours long. We got to chop it down. We got to chop it down to 90 minutes." And when the final product came out to be 2 hours and whatever, well, it's the best we can. If we chop it down anymore, people get lost in the story. So I think that plays to your point. I think the other point that you had made about character development, right? I think nowadays audience, because their attention spans are so short, they don't have the patience to sit and wait through character development like you and I with Gen X, basically, right? So we sat through, we enjoy character development and knowing the background story, because it makes sense. If it's too choppy, you end up with a film like this version of The Crow.
Right, because really, if you're going to be choppy and shorthand stuff, then you got to do it in a certain kind of way to make it work.
Yep.
But just this whole thing, like take out the kid or take out the wife and you're supposed to care. Because a good example of a short and sweet and powerful at the same time is like the movie Up. It was like a little montage. I didn't know that woman. I saw her as a montage with her husband and all the years and the little precious moments and stuff. And when he lost his woman and he was just by himself, that broke my heart. And that was less than 5 minutes. Okay, so if you could do it some kind of way like that, where it's going to still feel like something, because most people would take a whole movie and then the wife dies and you're like, oh, you're just so crushed. They did it in 5 minutes at the beginning of the movie and then made a whole other movie with him and his adventures later on right after that. So if you're going to have it short and sweet, you better figure out a way to have us feeling and caring and connecting very quickly, because otherwise, what's the point? What's the point?
Nope, that's a good way of saying it, bro. That's a real good way of saying it.
Now, did you believe Eric and Shelly? Okay, they had just met in rehab in passing, right? Did you feel this would be the situation where he would have been like, hey, I'm going to give up my eternal soul for this woman?
No. No, I don't believe that, not one bit.
That's what they want us to believe, though. So why waste all that time?
You just met her. You barely know her.
Right.
You know, it took you no time. You fucked right away. Right. So that was no. I did not believe that at all. I didn't believe it was an eternal love like that. No,
it wasn't earned at all. It wasn't even like
earned.
Right. So when he's saying all this stuff, it's kind of like, you're doing that for who? Matter of fact, do you even know her last name?
Right. Like what was her last name?
I don't know. Her name was just Shelly.
Shelly. Right. You're gonna give up your life, go eternal damnation for her? Why?
Right. Like, how'd she get in there? What she do to deserve to get in there in the first place? Okay. So she didn't want to tell him what she did because it might change how he feels about her, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, he knows that guy is up to something. He knows that main guy, that Vincent dude, is up to something. The big bad guy. So when he sees that video, matter of fact, why would that guy let that dude record a video of him possessing somebody, making them do something wrong, like kill somebody? Why would he even let that happen? People won't let you have a camera or a phone in a concert. So how you gonna pull that out? There's only 5 of you up in there. You got this guy that you know is crazy and taking people out. You gonna be sitting there filming them on your phone?
Right. You've been around for centuries. All right. The devil is your homeboy.
Right.
And you're gonna let someone just go ahead and record you? and rather than rely on satanic powers,
right,
you have to do stuff the old school way.
Right.
You gotta chase them, you gotta chase people down now.
Right. At least have some kind of mess where the camera goes by you and phase your face out or something. Something. Right?
Right.
Like, where's he in all these pictures? I don't see him in pull a vampire thing. Something. So the premise is just kind of crazy. And then for him to see that video of Shelly, killing somebody, and to honestly think that she did that under her own will, and then to not feel the same way about her, your love is not pure anymore because you seen her kill somebody. Like, that she was under duress. That wasn't her.
Right. Well, before I forget, I got a great idea. For a movie.
Go for it.
All right. So, what's that movie with Denzel Washington where he played a cop and every single time he was chasing a demon?
Fallen.
Okay. You take that premise of The Fallen as the antagonist in The Crow. That movie would be so fucking dope if you did that. Can you see it?
I can see
now,
it.
That would make fucking sense right there.
Yeah.
The whole thing about vengeance and stuff, right?
Right.
That would make, if the studio put that together, they would have like Crow 1, 2, 3, and 4 with that shit right there. That'd be great. What do you think, Jay?
No, I think that's brilliant because then he's jumping into people that are loved ones, so he'll have different feelings about the moves that he's making, so it won't just be just tearing through people without any consequences and stuff. Yeah. It'd be high stakes too.
High stakes. They need to hire me and be a movie head studio.
You should. It's kind of dry over there in Warner Brothers. They need some help.
Bro, I'm telling you.
Warner Brothers, boy, they need help over there. They canceling movies and making crazy stuff. And Sony needs help too of all these Spider-Man villain movies with no Spider-Man in them.
Right. Oh my God. That's why I think we're stuck in the Matrix. If you think about it, it's like they're running out of ideas.
Yeah, it's rough out here. It's
rough. I'm telling you, Jade, someone's going to steal my idea. They're going to make that movie. You heard it here first.
A lot of thieving and stuff out there, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Some thievery.
Some thieving out there. But,
yeah,
The Crow was tearing people up.
They were tearing up. I was damn.
You were like, excellent.
I did say that.
You doing Mortal Kombat calls in there.
I was. I said that was excellent.
Excellent.
In my head, I was saying fatality.
Right, but you had the same kind of tone. That's why I was cracking up. I was like, this dude crazy. All right, so that was Jay and Victor discussing the movie The Crow, now in theaters. Until next time, peace.
That was fun, bro.